G'day and welcome back to the Life Outside podcast. Each episode we share stories from outside to hopefully inspire you to get outside as well. My name is Cam Bostock, and on today's episode I chat to Kiera Blaney. Kiera has travelled to over 60 countries, diving deep into their cultures, religions, and choosing to spend more of her time with locals off the beaten track rather than at popular tourist destinations. She's also done a lot of walking, particularly on pilgrimages. Kiera has walked the Camino in Spain and the Kumano Kodo and 88 temples pilgrimages in Japan. We chat about solo traveling as a female across Asia, Europe and South America, and dive into many of Kiera's incredible experiences across her many years of travel. We hope you enjoy. G'day, Kiera. How's it going? Thank you so much for making the time to join us on the Life Outside podcast. Where are you currently based and how are you doing?
Thanks for having me. So good to be here. I live on the Gold Coast in Australia and just currently planning my adventures for the next year, which is really exciting.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So we're on opposite sides of Australia. For those who aren't Aussie, it's basically different countries. I'm over on the West Coast and we've been trying to secede for a while now, but we're like completely different time zones and 6-hour flight away, which is kind of funny being in the same country. But you've done plenty of adventures in your time, Kiera. I've just been looking into a bit of your website and your videos and stuff that you've done over your time, and I'm blown away with how much you've managed to fit in a very short space of time since you started adventuring, which I think was like your late teens. Walk me through how you got started traveling, trekking, and doing all these crazy things that you do, which we'll get into during this podcast.
Like where it started or when it started.
Yeah, where did it begin?
Oh,
Did you grow up outside exploring, traveling a lot, or is that just something that sort of hit you that you really wanted to do when you're a teenager? How did that come?
yeah, it really, like, my family doesn't travel. There were immigrants from Ireland into Australia, and I was never exposed to travel or camping or hiking. And when I was like in my mid-teens, I just got really obsessed and fixated on India, actually, and in particular Varanasi. I saw a photo of the Ghats and everybody in colorful clothes and swimming in the waters and lots of different things happening in this image. It was chaotic but beautiful, and I got obsessed with it and wanted to know that life because it was so different to what I knew in Australia. So I thought, the moment I finish school, I'm going to go and see that for myself. And that's where it all started. I started writing a bucket
Wow.
list of all the things that I would flick through Lonely Planets. I collect them from the op shops, which are like secondhand shops for American listeners. And I just pick things out. And so I haven't finished the bucket list. I still have it. I wrote it when I was about 15 and I'm getting through it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I read your bucket list because it's on your website for all to see, and you've ticked off some really cool things. I think like what I love about how you adventure is that you tend to just go to places that not everyone else goes, and you love, these cultural experience and, embracing the history and like natural medicines and just seeing countries and cultures in probably a different way than like a normal traveler would who just flies to a country, does all the touristy stuff and then flies home, which is really cool. And like, I don't think that many people, are super inspired to go to India as their sort of like first trip. Usually it's, I want to go to Europe or America and that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool that, even at 15, you were like super interested in all these cultural experiences and festivals and just all that kind of stuff. What do you think draws you to that kind of experience and that kind of travel?
I think I'm obsessed with meeting people and seeing how they live. I'm not necessarily interested in seeing all the sights and the tourist attractions. Not that they're bad, but I want to experience as much as I can in this life. And I think, truly, when you're traveling, the best way to really travel in a place and experience it is to meet the local people and completely be absorbed in them. And I find like I've done that in many ways through couch surfing, hitchhiking, camping, and like only in the last few years I've got really into hiking trails and getting myself out there and being alone, because when you're alone, you also open yourself up to connecting with the locals even more. Because I've noticed when I've traveled with partners or friends, you don't meet as many people because perhaps it's more daunting for them to come and approach you. But if you're alone, it's much easier to connect with a local. And I've had amazing experiences. Like, some people might think like for them seeing the Eiffel Tower was their like highlight, but for me it was like sleeping on the floor in some Japanese woman's house in the middle of nowhere, sharing a meal by candlelight, and we couldn't even speak the same language. Like that's something like I'm like, oh, that was the best.
Yeah, wow,
It's
that's
a bit
amazing. I
different.
mean, I it's totally different to, I guess, the normal Westerner's sort of vision of what travel is, and I think that's something that I've sort of slowly realized myself. Like that is the best way to travel, is to actually interact with the local people and like immerse yourself in their life and what they do. That's how you can, learn and gain new perspectives. Like even the last couple international trips I've done, I was in Nepal a couple of years ago, and just like spending time with the Sherpa and the mountain people, and just seeing the way they live. It's so simple and incredible, and talking to them about their lives and how they grew up. It's like it's just eye opening and really, yeah, it's kind of addicting actually. Like when you start traveling like that, you're like, damn, I want to actually really get into the nitty gritty of these different places. Even hiking the Pacific Crest Trail last year, I went over there just to hike the trail, but my favorite part of the whole trip was actually just meeting people along the way and experiencing the generosity of people inviting you into their home and just telling you about their life and their perspectives on different things. And those are the most memorable moments for me. And I'm really excited to sort of dive into that further as I travel and sort of experience the less beaten track, I guess, of these travel and not just going to the touristy spots. I love that so much. So you went to India first. Was that your first trip then?
No, not exactly. I ended up going over to Europe to stay with family there, and try and save money. And I worked as like an au pair. So like I've constantly been like with the local people, and I find, yeah, like it's amazing. And there I kind of bounced around for a bit, learning a few different languages. I didn't do any hiking, which I wish I did. And then I ended up on I had a crazy idea that I wanted to go from Southeast Asia to Europe overland with no planes. So that's where I
Wow.
first really started to kind of get off the beaten track, you'd say, and put myself in a vulnerable position where I could connect with people that I would never ever meet if I just stayed in Australia or in these like touristic Western countries.
Yeah. So you started in Southeast Asia, and did you have a vehicle, or was your plan to sort of just like hitchhike, catch taxis and trains and that kind of stuff? That
Yeah,
was the goal.
just hitchhiking of trains and buses, just no planes. So I didn't have a vehicle. I think I was like 20 and I had barely any money.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was really amazing. I couch surfed most of it. I think back, like I spent 2 months in India because I eventually got to India, and I think in the 2 months I spent probably like under $1,000. Like I just bought
Yeah.
food because I just stayed with local people, and it was amazing. I've been to
It's interesting because, yeah, that's probably the biggest way you can immerse yourself in the cultures, but also like the cheapest way you can travel. So it's kind of like a win-win if you're on a budget, but also wanted to experience as much as possible.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, like, yeah, immersing in the culture is like it's like stepping out of your comfort zone, right? Because you're not going to be staying in a hotel in really comfortable space, but like you trade that for this like amazing experience, and that we probably wouldn't
Yeah,
get like a
yeah,
once in a
absolutely.
lifetime opportunity to meet somebody.
Yeah, super cool. So how did you find people on the road to stay at their house, or catch a ride? Like what is your process for actually going from point A to point B and finding somewhere to sleep and somewhere to eat and that kind of stuff?
Back then, it was mostly couch surfing, or there was a few Facebook groups, depending in different countries, or you'd just sleep out. Nowadays, I don't use couch surfing as much. I tend to use like Workaway, which is a website that you can volunteer, and you can live with people for an extended amount of time and learn their skills. So I really love doing that. I recently did that in Japan with a beekeeper. So I learned how to do beekeeping and
Wow.
helped him with his apiary. got stung on my face. It was crazy. I was like this. But yeah,
Jeez,
now,
do you have the suit? Are you wearing the
yeah,
suit, or like they
like
just got one got in?
full on suit, and then the bee got under. Oh God.
Oh, jeez, that's wild.
But yeah, nowadays I just like find that if you're camping, I think especially as a woman, maybe I'm not sure about like I'd love to hear your side of the story, but like as a woman like traveling solo with a backpack and her tent, people tend to just invite me in. Like I don't know if they see me like as their sister or their child and they're just like, "Oh no, you can't sleep out. You have to come in my home." And then this beautiful like meeting happens and sometimes I'll extend my stay with them if we get on and help out around the house.
Wow.
So like I think sometimes I'm not sure, but like people are more open maybe because I am a female. What do you think? Have you had that experience?
Yeah, well, I guess I haven't put myself in those situations super often. But do you follow Alexander Campbell? He's like that dude, that Aussie dude that's just walking around the world right now.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
love
like
them.
every second video he posts is like he's like in some random area of some random country, and he's like, I'm just gonna set up my tent, on the side of the road or in this bush. But then some local will see him and be like, no, no, you can't sleep there. Come into my home, and he gets to, have a place to stay, and they feed him. And so I think that's like a universal thing. People in general are just super kind and friendly, and if they see this random stranger just like roughing it on the side of the road or like walking into the bush to camp, they're like, okay, no, you come, we're going to take care of you, kind of thing, which is
Yeah.
which is really cool. I feel like in Australia, that I don't know if that would happen. People aren't just taking randoms off the street into their homes and stuff like that.
I
It's
was
a
just
different culture,
thinking
a different
that.
country, but
I was like, in Australia, I don't
yeah,
think anyone would do that,
no.
unfortunately.
And even hitchhiking here is not like a big thing, and it's like, especially where I'm from in Perth, no one's picking up hitchhikers very often. I was on the Australian Alps walking track over east in December, and we were trying to hitchhike into towns from trail, and it was a bit of an effort at times because I think a lot of people just aren't used to seeing people put their thumb out on the side of the road here.
Yeah.
But I guess in Southeast Asia and traveling across these continents, it's a bit more common. What was your hitchhiking experience through Southeast Asia, India, Europe?
Southeast Asia, it was a little more connected. I didn't hitchhike that much because there's always like a really cheap public bus or something like that. In the more remote areas, like up, I used to like volunteer in like a elephant refuge center in the north of Thailand, and that was located like there was no public transport to it. So if we wanted to go into town, we'd always be hitchhiking in and out, and people would always, yeah, they'd pick you up. In Iran, surprisingly, I hitchhiked through Iran into Turkey and it was really easy. And they were very kind. Other countries I've found it easy. Well, it's 50-50 in Japan. Like, I did the long pilgrimage, the 88 temple pilgrimage. Their hitchhiking is super easy. Like, because they're so used to seeing pilgrims for thousands of years, they've been seeing pilgrims walking, and
Right.
that
Yeah.
island in particular has this kind of like hospitality, like they just automatically want to help because they always see pilgrims every single day walking up and down like the roads, so they'll come pull over, pick you up. I was walking once in the rain and this woman pulled over and she was like, "You can't be walking in the rain, get in my car." But I was like, "No, I can't drive, I have to walk this whole thing." I was very
Yeah.
adamant. But in other countries, like in other areas of Japan recently, I was trying to hitchhike from the end of the Kumano Kodo back up to the ferry point because I wanted to go back to Shikoku, and I struggled. It took over nearly the whole day, and in the end, I had to catch a train. So I think just it really
Wow.
depends on the area and the people, if they've been exposed multiple times and had good experiences, I think, with like travelers and hitchhikers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I've heard in a lot of parts of the US, for example, that's where I've hitchhiked the most. Hitchhiking's not really a thing, but then like anywhere near the Pacific Crest Trail, everyone is so used to hikers standing at all those main roads and putting their thumb out. Everyone would just stop and pick you up. Sometimes it took literally 5 seconds to get a ride over there. It's crazy. People are
Wow.
just so willing to pick you up. They know they're going to have a good chat with a foreigner who has some stories, and it's really cool. So I guess it is very dependent on location and culture, and the willingness of the locals and how much they're used to it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you were like 20 at this point, I guess, overlanding to Europe, solo traveling. as a female. I think a lot of people would be curious, like, what was that experience like? Did you have any issues? Did you ever feel unsafe? Because I think that's probably a misconception a lot of people have as well. What was that like for you?
Yes, at times there was like, yeah, unsafety. Taught me a lot about many things about myself, like how I hold myself. I think that one of the biggest things was like growing up in Australia, we're really friendly and we're really safe, right? This is like one of my biggest learnings. Like growing up as a woman in Australia, I can be really friendly to most people and I'm safe. But in a lot of other countries, my friendliness can be seen as an advance or perhaps like, yeah, I'm interested. So unfortunately, I had to change how I interact with people, which isn't, what I wanted to do. I wanted to be myself and be friendly and kind to everybody, but particularly to men in some countries, especially in Asia, I had to like hold back and be more reserved and perhaps not engage as much. And covering up was a big thing I learned. I remember first arrived in Iran, posted a video about this on Instagram like a couple months ago, and I got completely trolled. But I was talking about how I learned in Iran, like the importance of covering your body, like your legs, your shoulders, your head, everything. Yeah, it's a thing, right? Like how you appear as a woman can really affect how people interact with you. I think on that journey in particular, I didn't sleep outside. Like I was actually afraid to be camping. Like I do now, I camp, but I wouldn't camp everywhere in the world as a solo female.
Yeah, the cultural differences, religious differences of these countries means that it's sort of something you have to individualize to the place that you are. And I
Yeah.
guess you've had so much experience now, you kind of have that knowledge and confidence to go certain places and, to do certain things. And that's quite interesting. I think a lot of people, guys and girls, are just very nervous about solo traveling for a whole range of reasons. But it can be such a growing and learning experience as well, as long as I guess, you do it in the right way. So, where did you end up on the end of that first trip? How long did it take, by the way, to cross Asia and Europe? And yeah, what was the feeling sort of at the end of that?
Wow, thinking back, it was so long ago. Um,
How long ago was it at this point?
I'm I'm 33 tomorrow, actually. So it was over 10 years ago, nearly 11
Wow.
years ago, 12. Yeah, it took, I think it was a year. I spent a long time in India. Like I worked in Bollywood in Mumbai, which was really fun to make some money. So I was
Oh,
kind of stopping
tell me
along the
about
way.
that. What did you do in Bollywood?
I was
That's cool.
like the extra in the like films, and I used to wear a sari
What?
and do this dance. There's a
You're
video on
kidding.
YouTube. I'll have to send it to you.
Please send that to me.
Oh, it was such another life. But yeah, like I loved India. It was amazing. Um, but yeah, it was about a year, and then when I got to Europe, I ended up moving to England. So I have an EU passport, so I could work there because of my Irish family. And I met a guy on this travels, and I ended up he's from England, and I stayed in England for a little bit, as it happens.
Yeah, that's the truth. There's a lot of people out there traveling in all kinds of different ways. At the end of that trip, were you like, "This is what I want to do more of"? You loved it. You loved it
Yes,
every second, and you're like, "Hell yeah, I want to keep traveling, exploring, experiencing things."
100%. I just needed to make money. I really had this goal that I wanted back then. I really wanted to see every country in the world. It was a bit of a naive goal, I would say now, and now it would be great to see every country, but I'm really more focused on like experiences I want to have. It's not like a tick box checklist for me anymore. It's like more of like what kind of things do I want to experience, and it doesn't matter if I don't see every country. But after making some money, I decided to start another adventure from like the bottom of South America to Mexico overland. So similar kind of
Wow.
thing. That one was more successful. I only had to take one plane, and that was at the border of Ecuador and Colombia because Colombia was having riots and they shut. And I was just waiting for weeks in Ecuador, and I ended up taking a flight and I skipped Colombia, unfortunately.
So you pretty much traversed all of South America up to essentially, yeah, into North America. How
Yeah.
long did that one take? And that sounds like an incredible journey.
Yeah, it was amazing. Once again, I wish I hiked more there. I did a few hikes in Peru, but now that I'm much more into hiking, I'm like, oh, I missed out on so many great hikes. But yeah, I started in Rio. So I didn't do every single country, but I started in Rio and we worked our way down into Argentina, Chile, and then up through Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, and then I had to cross by flight to Panama and then continued upwards to Mexico City. So that was about over a year,
Incredible.
like maybe a year and 2 months or something. Yeah, it was fun.
Wow, that's a long time to just be in a completely foreign land. What were some highlights from the South American journey?
Oh, wow. So many. I did a lot of volunteering. So I used that website Workaway and I would just stay in places for quite a long time. So I stayed in Uruguay for a month volunteering. I loved it there. Such a cool place, such cool people. I never thought I would love Uruguay, but yeah, I definitely got stuck there drinking mate. And then I went. One of my favorite adventures actually was the Atacama in Chile. I think you would love it there. There's really cool hikes, and yeah, it's just really out of this world. It looks like the moon. And then you cross like the
Wow.
salt flats into Bolivia, and I stayed in Bolivia for 2 months. One of my favorite countries is Bolivia because it's so like they've held on to their culture so much. And well, this was a while ago, but back then it wasn't too touristic. It probably changed now, but yeah, I ended up living in the Amazon there, volunteering at an animal refuge again, and we would like rescue wild cats like jaguars and pumas from like circuses or people's houses and monkeys and like try and rehab them and put them back into the Amazon, which was the crazy adventure. I loved it.
Yeah. I feel like you could probably talk for about 10 years on all your adventures.
Yeah.
Are you going to write a book? Because
Uh,
I'm blown away with all these things that you've done. That's incredible.
some people say I should write a book. I just don't know what I'd say. But I've been thinking
Oh,
to actually
geez.
write a
I feel
book
like it.
about the pilgrimage in Japan because that was life
Yeah,
changing
cool.
for me. Like live out of everything I've done, that was absolutely the biggest life changing adventure in my life.
Insane. Yeah, you have to put something to paper. That's for sure. I guess the way you travel is such a testament to actually just you know getting into the culture and volunteering and spending a lot of time in one place. You just get to experience all of these things. I mean, I haven't done much of that kind of stuff, and I don't know much about a lot of the countries that you've explored, but you make it sound like a really incredible experience. I'm sure there was a lot of sort of hard times during these travels as well. Were there some tough moments in this South American trip that you can look back on and be like, damn, that
Hmm.
was tough. That took a bit to get through.
Yes, many. I was actually attacked by the cat that I was a puma. I was walking, turned around and used me
Wow.
as a scratching post. Yeah, that was really tough. I was yeah, traumatized.
Yeah,
Other
were
thing,
you
sorry,
like severely injured after that one? Was
no,
it?
just more like surface scratches. But yeah,
Yeah,
I was lucky. I
yeah,
definitely
it'd be a
didn't.
scary moment.
Yeah, I said I'm not working with them again after that, and they transferred me to the monkeys, which was much better for me. The monkeys are awesome.
Wow.
But yeah, like there's always stuff, right? Like, things don't go to plan. You lose money. Something gets stolen. Yeah, like you get harassed. Yeah, it's tricky traveling. There's always good and there's
Yeah,
always bad, but I think you just got to focus on the good experiences. Because yeah, with anything in life, there'll always be that, right? Good and bad.
absolutely. And I think, you don't want bad things to happen to you, but those are the moments where you grow and you learn and you can, come out the other side saying, okay, now I know how to handle this situation, and you just better, you know, going through life that way. If everything goes perfectly, you probably don't learn as much and you don't kind of grow that resilience, I would say.
Yeah. There was one thing that just came to mind because I know you love your hiking, and my first real hike was Machu Picchu in Peru.
Wow.
I didn't know what I was like, yeah, I can do it. Everyone does it. I was incredibly unfit. Just like some backpacker and didn't have any right gear at all. I froze on that hike. But yeah, some friends
Wow.
from Bolivia that were at the volunteering too were like, let's all go do it. And I was like, sure, I can do it. Nah, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't know for you, but like I
Wow.
feel like the first like big hike anyone does is really tough because you really see your
It's
body
always tough.
over the few days,
Yeah.
right? Because the first day you're like, oh, that was hard, I can do it. But the next day, that's where it's like your body's really under the pressure.
It's like anything, you just don't know what to expect, I guess. And often it's harder than you think and that kind of stuff. How long were you on trail going to Machu Picchu? Did you make it in the end? Because it would have been obviously quite the reward after all the, the tough hiking that you went through.
Yeah, I barely made it. And I'm not embarrassed to say
Yeah.
that. Like, I was
Crawled to the end.
pretty much crawling. I complained so much. Everyone was just like, shut up, Kiera. Yeah, if it wasn't for the group, I wouldn't have made it. But yeah, I was felt really good getting there at the end, and I did think to myself, I'm never going to hike again. What? Why do people do
Yeah.
this? That all crossed my mind. Like,
Wow.
but I did,
Yeah.
and yeah, it got easier every single time. Yeah,
Yeah, you've obviously done quite a lot of hiking up until this point now. It's interesting. I'm really looking into a lot of like the lesser hiked trails around the world, but the route to Machu Picchu is obviously insanely popular, but it's still quite high on my bucket list. It's just one of those epic things to do, and yeah, I think I really want to go to South America next year. That's kind of my rough goal. I want to hike Aconcagua and I want to explore Patagonia and see Machu Picchu. And I'd love to experience a lot of these really cool things that you're talking about as well in that continent. So hopefully can make that happen.
you won't regret it. It will be like amazing. And for Machu Picchu, there's other trails that aren't as like the Inca Trail is one main one everyone does, but I did the Salcantay, which is I think it's busy now, but back then it wasn't busy. There might be like new trails that
Yeah.
they've created where it's not as
Yeah.
packed.
Cool. I'll have to do some research because I'd really like to head down there. Never been to South America before. So after your second big overland journey, what was next? Obviously, you probably had to make some more money again, and then
Yeah.
you were probably like, okay, which continent can I explore, or which country can I go to now?
Yeah, I ended up going back to Australia and I worked a lot here. But then I ended up back in India where I was looking at studying Ayurveda, which is like an ancient Indian medicine. And I got a bit stuck there. You know, you fall in love, and I ended up spending 2 years in India.
Wow.
And I had to come back home because for medical treatment, actually. And that was a good catalyst in my life because it got me out of maybe a different direction that I probably am glad I'm not going that direction anymore. And it pushed me to another direction, which I'm on now, which is great.
Yeah, right. So you were in India for 2 years. That's incredible. What is Ayurveda? Is that how you say it? I'm probably saying that wrong.
No, no, you
Did
said
you
it right.
study that for the full 2 years?
No, I did 6 months, and then I was just kind of practicing it myself. And we lived in a village up in the Himalayas, and I would like teach yoga, and I started hula hooping there, and I started teaching hula hoop and performing. Yeah, it was a really good time in my life. There's actually a really cool
Yeah,
pilgrimage
interesting.
there if you want something crazy.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about the Indian pilgrimage that you've done. Is that in the Himalaya up north?
Yes. Yeah, it's to Mani Mahesh, which is like this lake that I don't know if you know much about Hindu mythology, but where Shiva and
No.
Shakti like they bathed in this lake up in, it's only open 1 month of the year because otherwise it's all snow. So
Right.
it's, yeah, a pilgrimage where you're not alone. You're like shoulder to shoulder with like local people of all walks of life, like people from the slum and very rich people. And it's completely free to sleep and eat. And you walk, I think it was like 5 days, and you walk all the way up to this lake. And you can just sleep in huts along the way, and people just donate food to you. And then
Wow.
you arrive at the lake, and you're meant to bathe there for like blessings. Yeah, it's really interesting pilgrimage. I didn't meet one foreigner on there. I was the only foreigner. No one really knows about it, so that could be a good one for you.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to look into that. Did all the locals look at you a bit weirdly? Like, what is
Yeah.
this white chick doing here? Like, what's going on?
Yep, completely. And like that's where you,
But they were obviously super friendly and welcoming as well, or?
yeah, photos and oh my gosh, come here, stay in our hut, eat our food. I was like, okay. It
Wow.
was
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing, a good
Yeah, super
experience.
cool.
And they support you. Like the local Indian people are very supportive of tourists, which is really nice.
Yeah. So interesting. I know you do a lot of hula hooping. I've seen that on your Instagram. Is that so? That's where it's maybe started in India, and now you're like performing in Australia. Tell me about all that, because I guess you came back to Australia after India, and maybe started up this business and a bit of a new direction.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm being so vulnerable with you here. That's fine. When I got sick from in India, I caught tuberculosis, and I think it was on that pilgrimage, unfortunately.
Right.
And I had to come back to Australia to get medical treatment for that. And it was a 6 month treatment. And in that time, I thought I should start something here with my what I've learned with the hula hooping. So I started a little business. It started so small called Hula Hoop Brisbane, and it started with selling hula hoops and teaching people hula hoop fitness and dance. And then, yeah, I started working with the council. They got me on the Medibank private classes for the community. Then I started doing shows here, and I traveled even internationally doing shows, and I still do it. And now it's a little agency. So sometimes, like, if I'm traveling or hiking somewhere, I'll like have my friends perform instead. And yeah, it's been really fun adventure, very playful way to work and create a little income
Yeah,
for myself while I'm traveling.
very unique. I've seen some of the videos of you performing, and it's very impressive. I don't think I can even keep a hula hoop around my waist, but
I'll teach you
yeah,
and you'll be able to do
that's cool.
it.
Yeah, next time I'm up in the Gold Coast, we'll tee that up because yeah, new skills, baby. That'll be sick.
You'll surprise yourself, seriously. And it's you can't
Yeah, okay.
when you hula hoop. You'll just be like full of joy.
Sounds good. I'm convinced. So you've got this business running, but obviously you still got the travel bug there. Like you said, it kind of runs while you're away. And I guess the way I found out about what you do, and like a lot of what we've talked about, is the longer pilgrimages that you've done in Japan and also in Europe. And so, what got you interested in those? And I guess that's sort of the next kind of chapter. You're doing a bit more hiking and walking and amongst your travels. You did that 5 day pilgrimage in northern India. Was that something that sort of sparked an interest in doing these historic walks?
Yeah, I think for me, like I've learned that it's not just about like hiking and beautiful nature. Like I like that, but I also like connecting with locals while I'm hiking. So for me, a pilgrimage is much more suited because on the way, like I'm not completely isolated. I love to chat and I love to connect. So on a pilgrimage, you're likely passing through villages because traditionally, like in the past, they didn't have freeze dried food or like lightweight backpacks and all these things we have now. Like they would be on these trails and they'd have to have a village on the way to restock or recoup or get support. And they're all connected to religion. So people around these pilgrimage trails are all very supportive and giving. That's why I'm attracted to them, I think, because it's such a great opportunity to meet people and learn about the culture. But after that pilgrimage in India, I thought about the Camino, which is quite famous. And yeah, I read a book about it by Paulo Coelho, The Way, um, the Pilgrimage Way, and it really interested me because he did it and it was very spiritual for him. So I wanted to experience that and see if I'd have similar insights and feelings about it. And yeah, it was transformational. It was really hard, very, very, very hard. But the really, like, I think my journey has been guided a lot by the people I meet, because when I was in the desert in Chile, I met a woman and we didn't talk much, but she told me all of a sudden, you have to walk the 88 Temple pilgrimage. And I said, what is that? She said, it's a pilgrimage in Japan. No one knows about it except the local people. You need to go do it. When you have 2 months, go and do it. And I thought, yeah, one day, I'll add it to the long bucket list.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I finished studying, I thought, it's time. And because I'd done the Camino previously when I was in Europe, I was like, oh, I can do it. Like, I've walked for 40 days in Spain. I can definitely walk for like 2 months. So I begged my partner to come with me, and he said no. So I thought, I have to just got to go do it. I was like, this is the first, at this point, I hadn't traveled solo in years because it was during, the COVID time, and I'd lost that spark. So I do want to touch on that. Like, if you stop traveling like solo, or you stop doing anything, same like fitness, you start to lose your resilience and motivation and confidence in it. And to step back into solo travel, like, many people don't talk about this, but like, it was so hard. I used to think, how was I so fearless when I was younger? And now I'm like 30 or something, and I'm trying to go just hike in Japan alone, and I'm so scared. It's really interesting what came up. But yeah,
Yeah,
and then I
interesting.
did it, and life completely transformed after that.
So tell me about the 88 Temples trek. Where in Japan is that located? And so you say it takes 2 months. What's the distance? What's the trail like? What was that experience like?
So it's about 1,200 kilometers. You'd probably do it in like a month because you're so quick. Usually people take 2 months. I was about averaging, I think it was 46 days. And in that time, I took a bus at one point because I had an injury. So I didn't walk the whole thing, but I still did it.
Yeah, and it was amazing, was it? What were the highlights of that trail? 1,200 kilometers. That's a long way.
Yes, it was phenomenal. Like, I aim to camp it all. One, for money. Two, for like more experience, to meet people and local people. It's an expensive trail, so if you do stay in guest houses, it can add up. And I didn't research much. I don't tend to research much because it creates that like expectation. I really like to be surprised. So I had an idea of the trail. I didn't plan my days out. I was just like, I'll plan a few days at the beginning, and then I'll try and go as far as I can. And everyone was so kind. All the monks, they let me sleep at the temples. If of course I asked, and some turned me away, but mostly they said yes, and I could set my tent up on like the altar. They probably don't call it an
Wow.
altar; it's the shrine. But yeah, it was really amazing that they were so welcoming to me. And I think the biggest thing that, yeah, I touched on it before, the hospitality of the people. That's the biggest thing that changed me. It's called Osetai, and it is only from this island called Shikoku. So that's where the that's where the pilgrimage is. And you walk around this island, and you visit the 88 temples, but along the way there's like a lot of people living around this trail, right? And they've been living there for generations, like their family for thousands and thousands of years, watched many pilgrims walk by. And the Oseta it's basically the gift of hospitality, or the gift. And they'll just give you food. They'll just stop and be like, here's some food, here's some water, here's 1,000 yen,
Wow.
here's some money. Do you want to come stay in my house? Do you want to come join me for lunch? And I couldn't, I'd cry sometimes at the kindness of these people. Yeah.
That's amazing. My wife and I, we lived in Japan for a year actually in 2019. I don't know if you knew that, but
No.
my wife was studying Japanese, and yeah, the people there are incredibly friendly. We didn't go to Shikoku. We didn't go
Yeah.
to Shikoku, but we did a bit of travel and did quite a lot of hiking in the mountains. And yeah, it just the people are incredible. I'm really interested. We're going to go back to Japan hopefully in April, so a couple months from now. I'm interested in the Kamanakodo pilgrimage, which you've also done. Was that something you learnt about, on the 88 Temples trek, or
Yeah.
something you were interested in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned
Okay.
about
So
it while doing that. I didn't, it's actually, it's not Buddhist, the Kumano Kodo. It's Shintoism. So
yeah,
it's a little bit different, religious sects. Yeah, there's some crossover though. Yeah. And I didn't know any of this until I
yeah,
did it, and I learned. I don't particularly identify with one religion, so that's what I love to learn as well on these travels about all these different types of religions and rituals and traditions.
yeah, yeah. Really cool. And I'm getting more and more interested in that kind of thing. I think, yeah, this year I'm hoping to hike both the Camino de Santiago and also the Kamanakodo. So that, if all goes to plan, will be my bigger hikes this year. And I believe there's like something called the dual pilgrimage, right, which includes those two walks. What is that all about? The dual pilgrimage, and how does that work?
Firstly, I'm so excited that you're going to do these trails. It's so different to what you've done
Yeah,
before. Like,
it really is. I'm
yeah,
pumped, and watching you and others who have done these pilgrimages really got me interested in just like a whole different experience. It's not just hiking; it's more cultural and religious and historic. And yeah, I think it'll be fun. Won't be as challenging or as wild, but I think this year that'll be a fun sort of switch. And also, I think my wife is interested in coming along on the pilgrimages because they're a little less wild, and that's probably more her style. So it'll be really cool. But yeah, dual pilgrimage.
yeah, the dual pilgrim is something, yeah, I learned about on the 88 Temple pilgrimage. So that is not part of it. The two pilgrimages that are the dual pilgrim is the Kumano Kodo in Japan and the Wakayama. So it's like south of Osaka. And then the other one's the Camino de Santiago, which is from the border of France to the full Camino is to the coastline, Finisterre. But most people walk to Compostela. So when you do both of these, you can get a special certificate and you get like a special golden shell. Like I made a video about it recently. And if you finish the Komonokoto second, you get a really cool ceremony at the temple in Japan where you get to drum up on the shrine, this massive drum with all the monks. It's really cool. I'm not too sure
Wow.
what the ceremony is or if there is one in Spain. I haven't really looked into it. So I think you'll experience that because you're going to do the Kimono Kodo first and then Santiago second. Is that right? Yeah.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, you have to tell me what happens at the end for you.
Yeah, well, hopefully there's something. 'Cause how are these trails connected? Like, where's the governing body of the dual pilgrimage?
Well, they're both UNESCO World Heritage pilgrimage routes, and there's not many like full pilgrimage routes that are recognized like that. And they have this strong connection to community and spirituality. And when I looked up at the history, that's the main reason that they're brought together because they have those similar values, bringing like pilgrims of all walks of life and supporting them on the trail. So yeah, like they're different religious like sects completely, but they've connected them. I think mostly from the UNESCO World Heritage routes.
Yeah, I'm very excited to do them this year. That'd be cool. I'd love to hear a bit more about the Kumano Kodo. I know you run guided tours on that trail, so you have done it a couple times now, or the pilgrimage, not a trail necessarily. I haven't looked too much into it myself actually, so maybe tell me a bit about it. How long is it? I know there is some different routes you can do. What's involved on the Kumano Kodo pilgrimage?
Well, it's yeah, many different routes. I do I've just started doing the tours like last year, which has been amazing. It's something I've always wanted to do. I used to be a tour guide in Spain, so linking back to that and bringing it 10 years later into reality with my new business has been amazing. But the Kimono Kodo I thought would be a really great launching pad as a tour because it's not too long. It can be done in like 4.5 days. It's hard because of the elevation. It's up and down constantly. It's about 70 kilometers, and yeah, you can break it up longer. I do suggest if you're going to do it, especially if you're doing it with your wife and you want just like a really nice experience, break it up into even smaller sections so you can really experience staying in these little village towns because it's so off the beaten track. Like it's not like Tokyo or Osaka or like these big cities. Like I think it's the real Japan. I know that's a big thing to state, but you're really immersed in this like countryside traditional way of living. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah,
You're staying
cool.
in people's homes. There's only homestays along the way, and they cook for
No
you.
camping, right?
No camping. Yeah, I tried to camp. So in Japan, wild camping's illegal, but on the pilgrimage route in Shikoku, the 88 temple pilgrimage, it's not officially allowed, but it's looked like at as tolerated because you're a pilgrim. So if you're just like a backpacker, they won't want you there. But if you're camping and you've asked permission, perhaps from the person who owns the land, or there's little henro huts on the pilgrimage route, then you can camp in them as long as there's no sign saying no camping. In the Komono Kodo, because it's UNESCO World Heritage Site, they're much more strict. They have no camping signs everywhere. There's 3
Okay, yeah.
campsites, but there's only 3. So that means you have to do the whole pilgrimage in like 3-4 days, which is a lot.
I'm definitely interested in doing the homestays though, because I think, like you said, they'll add to the experience.
Yeah. I've done
Yeah,
it
so
both
maybe a bit of both
ways,
would be fun.
and I prefer the homestays.
So you said you can do it in as short as 4.5 days, 70 kilometers. But you also mentioned there's different routes. Is there like longer routes? Is there different ways you can go? How does the routes work?
Yeah, so I don't know all of them. I haven't done every single one, but there's one that links. I wish I could show you a map. But yeah, there's like the Nakahechi route, which is the traditional, like most walked one. That's the one I do with the group. And then there's the Koechi route, which goes from Hongu, which is like the center of the Nakahechi and the main temple. And that's where you get the dual pilgrim ceremony. And you go up to Koyasan, it's a really hard trail. It's 5 days. So if you wanted a really long trail, you could start at the beginning of the Nakahechi and then like divert from Hongu up, and gives you like about 9 days. There's also another route from Hongu where you don't follow the traditional route and you can take a boat on the river to the coast. So a lot
Right.
of pilgrims would take the boat, and they're all like official routes that pilgrims walked.
Interesting.
There's a
I'm gonna have
lot
to do some
to
research.
it.
I think, I mean, I like walking a long way, so I definitely want to extend it if I could. But we'll have to chat off camera a bit more about it. I think you can help me plan out the best route for me. How have you found guiding on the trail? It'd be obviously quite a different experience to walking it solo, kind of guiding people along that experience. Did you say you've done one trip so far with some others planned, or you've done a couple?
Yeah, so I've done one on the Kimono Kodo that was in November, and now I'm doing another one in March. And it's been different. Like wasn't sure what to expect because I've done guiding before, but not in like a hiking way, like for it was a 9-day trip. So there was like just different things that came up where like if I was alone, I wouldn't have to think about that. But I really enjoyed it. And I think what I took away from it the most was that I really miss hiking with people. I really loved hiking with a group of amazing women. Like, it wasn't like as there was no solitude, but it was like I got something else. Like, I got connection, and we'd share the
Yeah.
view and we would share the challenges. And I think by the end, we were all like best friends because we'd gone through this challenging thing together. So I think there's a lot of power in like doing something challenging outside your comfort zone with a group of people. It connects you on like a different level.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that, and that's probably a big draw to the tours that you offer is to be able to get together with a sort of a like-minded group of gals who, some of them might have not felt comfortable going alone or just not had the skills or the knowledge required, and they can come join the group and experience everything together. I think that's the journey I've been on over the last couple of years. I've mentioned it on the pod before, but usually the first few years of my through hiking and long distance hiking were all solo, and I just loved being out in nature by myself and just like relying on my own capabilities and experiencing like the peace and the awe that comes with just being out wild by yourself. But walking the PCT with a trail family the whole way through, and I went to Nepal the year before, and with a group of guys who were just trekking for 30 days together. There's something about being with a group and doing like hard things together, experiencing the ups and the downs. And like you said, you just come out, best mates for life because you've experienced all this together. And I guess you just never, yeah, you never spend that much time with even your best mates back home, in a general a week. You spend 24 hours a day with those girls for 9 days. Of course, you're gonna like really connect and come away really good mates. So yeah, group hiking versus solo hiking. It's an interesting one. I definitely love both, but being with a group is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. So what have you got coming up? Have you got any big travels, any big trails planned? You've obviously got that tour in March, which is exciting. Currently in the Gold Coast. What's up next for you?
Well, I am going to do part of the Jordan Trail. I know we've chatted about this, and you mentioned it's on your list as well. So have I only have like a month or a bit less to do it, and you can't really do it I won't do it in a month because I like to go. I'm a slow hiker. I like to take my time, and I've decided I'm going to just do part of it, which is a weird thing to decide because usually I'm very much like all for or not at all. But I'm excited because I'm going to do a bit of it alone, and then I'm going to be actually joining a group. So I've never done something like
Wow.
this before. So we were just talking about group travel versus solo travel. So I'm actually going to really put it to the test what the Jordan Trail is like alone and then with a group. So I'm leaving on, I'll be there on the 23rd of February, and I'm going to be doing the first few sections up in the north, connecting with some women initiatives along the way. There's a lot of women initiatives in Jordan. It's amazing. And I'm going to interview some of the women there and see what they're up to. And then I'm going to be joining with a tour operator there, and I'm going to help make some content for their trip. So I get to have a little
Wow.
trip with them and have everything planned for me, which will be nice. I won't have to cook.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's cool. You're going to experience, a whole bunch of different things rather than just hiking on the trail.
Yeah.
The Jordan Trail, does that cross the entire country of Jordan?
Yeah.
I've looked into it a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty cool looking trail.
So it will start like up in like near the border of Syria and Jordan, and then it's going to end at the water in, I think it's called Aquafaba, right at the bottom. Yeah, I'm like excited.
Unreal.
I'm a little nervous. I've been connecting with a lot of women that have done it solo, like through like Instagram and websites. There's a lot of bloggers that have done it, and apparently they've just said like, look, people are so kind and welcoming, and there's nothing to be concerned about. So I'm feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, you're gonna love it, and I'm very excited to follow along. I'm guessing you're gonna share the journey on Instagram and social media
Yeah.
as much as you can.
Yes. I think I'm going to not try and do it while I'm hiking though, like I've done before. I might just like leave it till when I get back or finish the hike because it's quite challenging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely hard to make content while you're walking, especially if you're going to be, with this tour group and helping out with their content and that kind of stuff. But yeah, enjoy the experience and put it together for us afterwards. Because yeah, like I said, like you said, sorry, I'm interested in doing the Jordan Trail myself. My friend Dan, who I met on the Pacific Crest Trail, that's like top of his bucket list, and hopefully we can hike that together at some point. So it'd be cool to have some inspiration. Yeah, sounds like you got a bit going on over the next few months. Should be an epic 2025.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on, Kiera. How can people follow you? Where can they find your videos, your posts, all that kind of stuff?
So you can find me on Instagram. That's my biggest platform. I'm Hey Kiera _ and I'm also writing some blogs to help people on their adventures. So that'll be over at shewillexplore.com, and that's where I launch all my trips as well.
Incredible. We'll obviously link all of that in the show notes below. If you're interested to go on one of the Kumano Kodo tours as well, go check out Kiera's website, because that would be an incredible experience. That's for females only, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Sorry, guys, but it's all about just empowering females.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And that's a big part of your content in general, isn't it? It's just getting gals out there. And, I've seen just in some of your comment sections, people really respond to that and love what you're doing. So
yeah,
keep it up.
thank you.
Love it.
Yeah, the main reason with the women's one, I didn't really touch on it, was the reason I focus on women, inspiring women and sharing women adventures, is because I used to be really scared to camp alone. And I think a lot of women are. And I think if we empower each other, and we do it the right way, we can adventure just as much as any men can. I get a lot of feedback like, oh, I can't do that. He's doing it, I don't know if you get that kind of comments like, oh, you can do that because you're a man. But I really want to show that women can do it too. Yeah.
I've definitely had those comments, and I've got a lot of questions from gals. Is this safe for me? Is this something that I could do solo? It's kind of hard for me to comment on that. I don't have the experience that you have or any woman has. So really cool that there's people out there. I've pointed people to your page many times.
Thank you.
You can sort of see that firsthand and hopefully gain the confidence they need to get out and explore as well. So keep crushing it, Kiera. And really appreciate you making the time this morning to join us on the Life Outside podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, seriously. I've been following you for so long, and now we officially meet.
Yeah, very cool. I'm sure we'll cross paths in person very soon. Hopefully, go out on an adventure sometime.
That'd be awesome.
And you can teach me hula hooping.
Yes. Thank you so much.
We'll make that happen. All right, thanks guys for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening and rate the show as well. Really helps us out. Share it with your mates. Share it with some adventurous gals who are wanting some inspiration for travel and hiking. They'll get that from Kiera. No worries at all. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.